What's up, YouTube? This is Bystander X79. I'm coming to you today with the next Duel Academy 101 video. This is going to be on how to play, going through the phases of the turns, win conditions, battle damage. Alright? Alright. So, first and foremost, how to begin. So what is a duel? A duel is a single game in the card game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright? Playing against the friends for pickup games, you're usually just going to play one duel, and that's it. When you go to tournaments or events, you're going to be doing match structure, which is basically the winner is the person who wins 2 out of 3 games in the match. All right. So if player 1 wins 1 game, player 2 wins game 2, you play a third game. Whoever wins that third game wins the duel. All right. So winning a duel, each player starts a duel with 8,000 life points (LP) on the cards. You win a duel by reducing your opponent's life points to 0 if your opponent is unable to draw a card, or if a special effect is fulfilled and says you win the duel if you fulfill the effect. Alright, if in case you and your opponent both reach 0 life points at the same time, the duel is considered a draw. Alright, starting the game, sit down at the table, make sure you have your fields, set up your mats if you're using mats. Make sure the table's nice and clean. You greet your opponent. Typically, you shake hands. You shuffle your deck best as you can, and then you shuffle and cut your opponent's deck as well. Your opponent's gonna be doing that same thing to you. Okay. After shuffling and cutting the decks, you place the main decks in the proper deck zones. The main deck goes in the main deck zone. The extra deck with your Xyz, Synchro, Fusion links going face down in the extra deck zone. All right. Next thing is that this is especially important in match play, is that both players have to show each other their side decks and record a number of cards in it. So if you guys are playing a 13 card side deck, your opponent's going to know that, and when you side cards from your side deck into your main deck in between the duels of the match, your side deck has to have the same number of cards to start with. So you start with 13, your side deck still has to have 13. Alright, and after you exchange cards between your main deck and side deck, you have to show your side deck again, cards face down, to your opponent so they can confirm the number of cards remain the same. After that, both players decide who goes first, and typically you can play rock, paper, scissors, flip a coin. A lot of players like rolling dice to determine who goes. Basically, the winner decides who goes first and who goes second in game 1. If you're playing a match, and in match format, after game 1, the loser decides who goes. The loser of the first game decides to go first or second. All right. After the person who's going first is determined, both players draw 5 cards from the top of their main deck, and this is their starting hand. All right. So that's it. So now we're ready to duel. I'm gonna go on into the phases. Alright, there are 6, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phases in this. You have the draw phase, the standby phase, the main phase 1, battle phase, main phase 2, and end phase. Alright, draw phase says it all. You draw a card, add it to your hand. The thing is that if you're the player going first in turn 1, you're not allowed to draw. This rule was implemented to actually make sure that the first turn player doesn't gain too much advantage over their opponent. Alright? After you finish your draw phase, you enter into the standby phase. A lot of times, standby phase, you're activating or paying costs for your cards if they need to. If your cards do not say you have to pay a cost during the standby phase, you're not going to be using this standby phase at all. However, there is a good rule of thumb, is that you should always announce when you're beginning a particular phase and when you're ending a particular phase. This gives your opponent the time to actually be able to respond to the phase changes and be able to play cards. Play cards in response to those changes, if they want to. Alright, now that's that. We're going to go over here. Main phase 1. Now this is one of the big phases here. Main phase 1. there are a lot of different actions you can take. You can normal summon, which includes normal summon or set a monster. This includes tribute summoning, only once a turn. You can special summon or flip summon as many monsters as you want. Of course, flip summon, you need to place a monster face down on the field the turn before, so it's a little bit slow. You can change your monster's battle positions just as long as you don't summon them that turn. So if you summon a monster, if you set a monster face down in a defense position, you can't just flip it face up the same turn. It's not going to work like that. You're also not allowed to change battle position if you already changed the monster's battle position that turn. Alright, you can activate cards or effects, whether it be spells, traps, or monster effects, as many times as you want during this phase. Just keep track of any time you have to pay costs, because those costs can add up. Alright, you can also set spell cards and trap cards. Just remember, you can set almost any spell and activate at the same turn, except for quick play spells and trap cards that you need to wait one turn before being able to flip the face up to use them. That's why they're traps. They surprise your opponent. Alright, once you finish summoning, activating spells, setting your traps, you go into the next phase, the battle phase, which is basically where pretty much the majority of the battle damage is going to be happening. Alright? Alright, there are 4 steps. There's the start step, the battle step, the damage step, and then the end step. Alright, if you look at this flow chart, damage step seems to be off the side, and there's a reason for that. The primary reason for that is if you have multiple monsters in the field. Now, the start step of the battle phase is basically you just declare you're entering the battle phase to your opponent. Remember, you gotta give your player the chance to turn around and be able to respond to what you're doing. And the player should respond in the proper amount of time. If they're taking too long, repeatedly, that's when you might need to turn around and call in a judge, especially if this is a tournament format. Alright, the battle step, basically every monster that you have in attack position is allowed to attack one time. Alright, basically you choose a monster on your side of the field. You choose a monster it's going to attack on your opponent's side, and you proceed to the battle. If your opponent has something to respond to your attack, they will respond at this time. If your opponent doesn't have any monsters on the field, your monsters are attacking your opponent's life points directly, meaning they lose the life points equal to the monster's full attack points. Okay. Once you declare an attack, we enter the damage step. Alright, in this step, the players calculate the results of the battle and whatever damage is done. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get right into the nitty-gritty right here. That's going to be the next page. Ooh. That's going to be the next page. So this is determining damage. Alright, so basically here's what's going to happen. There are several different scenarios. There are a couple of different scenarios when you attack a attack position monster, when you attack a defense position monster, and if your opponent has no monsters. Alright, we already covered that. That's a direct attack. Opponent takes damage equal to the monster's full attack. When you attack an attack position monster on your opponent's side of the field, compare the two monsters' attack. If your monster's attack is higher, your opponent's monster is destroyed, and then your opponent takes damage equal to the two monsters. The difference between the two monsters' attacks. So if let's say you're attacking with a Blue Eyes White Dragon, which has 3,000 attack, and you're attacking your opponent's Dark Magician, which has 2,500. In this particular battle, your opponent's weaker Dark Magician is going to wind up losing the battle, be destroyed, and your opponent loses 500 life points. If both monsters' attacks are tied, both monsters are destroyed. No damage is taken by either player. If your monster is weaker and your opponent's monster is higher, the situation is kind of reversed where you're taking the damage and your monster is destroyed. Now you're probably wondering, why would I do that? There are certain particular monsters out there that have effects that trigger when they're destroyed and sent to the graveyard. So crashing one of your smaller monsters into a bigger monster to get their effect might be part of your opponent's overall strategy. So don't be surprised if that happens. Okay, when you're attacking a defense position monster, the first thing is that if the monster's in face down defense position, you need to flip it face up. Then you can see the monster's defense points, and you can go into damage calculation. If your monster's attack is higher than the opponent's defense position monster's defense, you win, but there's no damage taken. Alright, if both the attack and your monster's attack and your opponent's monster's defense are the same, no damage is taken and neither monster is destroyed. Okay, and if your monster is weaker and your opponent's monster's defense is higher, then you're taking damage. Also, if a monster is flipped face up after damage and has a flip effect after damage calculation, the flip effect will apply. And just be careful that the flip effect cannot target monsters that were destroyed during that damage calculations. That were destroyed during the damage calculation. So, if the flip effect monster requires it to target a monster on the field, and it was the only monster on the field, it can't target itself because it was already considered destroyed. Alright, we're gonna go right back up there. So that's the phase. That's the battle step. That's the damage. That's the damage calculation right there. You're going to repeat the battle step and damage calculation for each monster you have in attack position that you want to attack with, and after that, you have the end step, which is basically when you declare you're ending a battle phase. Alright? Just in case, guys, if for some reason you declare a monster attack and your opponent is able to summon out another monster, this is what triggers what we call a replay. Basically, what you can do is that the attacking monster can continue to attack the same target, or it can attack the new target on the field. If you choose not to attack with that particular monster and attack with a different monster, the first monster will be considered to already declare an attack and it won't be able to attack again that turn. Alright, and from there, once you finish your battle phase, we go into main phase 2. Alright, same actions as main phase 1, it's just that you have to be careful what you do, because if you've already normal summoned or set or tribute summoned during your main phase 1, you're not going to be allowed to do that during main phase 2. Remember, normal summon is only once per turn. So you can still special summon up monsters, change any monster's battle positions that you might want to change that haven't attacked. Remember that if they have attacked, they can't change the battle positions. If they haven't attacked, you can change them. If you did not summon them and allow effects, you could activate more cards or effects, set quick play spells and traps to prepare for your opponent's upcoming turn. After that, your main phase 2 announces you're going into end phase. In this particular phase, if there are any cards that resolve in the end phase, you resolve those cards' effects right now. If you have more than 6 cards in your hand, you have to discard until you have 6 cards. And your opponent also gets the ability to activate any spells, traps, or effects in response to what you're doing in the end phase. Okay? Main thing about when going through the phases is you have to communicate with your opponent. Give them proper time to be able to respond to your plays. As long as they respond in a proper amount of time, usually it shouldn't take more than a minute, minute and a half at most. And continue to play. If they're taking a little bit longer, ask, is there anything wrong? Can I continue to play? You know, just to turn around and help keep the game flowing at a good pace. I mean, you don't have to be a complete and total asshole about your opponent taking their time. But if you notice they're, like I said before, if you notice they're repeatedly taking a long amount of time to make a decision, and if you're in a tournament situation, that might be when you need to call in a judge to turn on and discuss what's going on. Okay. With that being said, okay. One more thing I want to turn around and talk about is right here is called turn player's priority. Alright, a turn player always starts with priority or a choice to activate a card first in each phase or step of their turn. As long as the turn player has priority, their opponent cannot activate cards or effects, except for effects that activate automatically, like trigger or flip effects. Okay, the turn player can either use priority to play a card or activate an effect, or pass priority to their opponent so they can activate an effect in response. Typically, let's say you summon a monster, you ask your opponent, do you want to activate another card or effect in response, or you just ask them if the summon's okay. If they say yes, continue on. Alright, and it's very important to keep this communication because, yeah, a player must pass priority to the opponent when moving on to the next phase or step in order to turn around and be able to give your opponent a fair chance. Alright, this is why communication is so important in this game. This way, players can turn around and don't think that they have specific advantages or disadvantages when they're playing against another player. With that being said, guys, this is the end of this particular video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this on my channel, hit that subscribe button. Ring the notification bell to enable notifications whenever I throw up a new video. And guys, until next time, peace.